All right, let's dive into something you use literally every second of your life, language itself. We're going to completely take it apart, and I promise, by the end of this, you will never, ever look at a simple word the same way again.
So, how does this thing, a physical object made of wood or whatever, something you can actually touch, how does it become this? Just a sound or a few letters on a screen? What's the real connection between the world out there and the words in here, inside our heads?
Well, the simple, common sense answer is pretty obvious, right? We just stick labels on things. The idea that humanity just sort of wandered around a world that was already there and created this giant catalog of names, the word table points to the object table. Easy. Case closed.
But what if that's not just a little oversimplified? What if that entire name-giving idea is just completely wrong? What if language doesn't just label our reality, but what if it actually helps create it?
And this is exactly where our main guy comes in, the architect of modern linguistics, Ferdinand de Saussure. He was a Swiss thinker, and his ideas, which were actually put together from his students' lecture notes after he died, they just completely turned our understanding of language on its head. See, before Saussure, studying language was mostly like being a historian for words. You'd trace how a word like table came from Latin and changed over hundreds of years. That's what they call a diachronic approach, looking through time. But Saussure came along and said, whoa, hold on. He suggested something totally radical, a synchronic approach. Basically, he said, let's forget history for a second. Let's freeze-frame language and look at it as a complete working system right now, like taking apart an engine to see how all the pieces fit together at this very moment.
So to understand this system, this engine, he had to start with its most basic part. And for him, that wasn't the word. It was something he called the linguistic sign.
Okay, so we all think it's pretty simple. A word points to a thing in the world. But Saussure's idea, so much cooler. He said a sign isn't a link between a word and an object at all. Instead, it's this unbreakable psychological bond between two other things, something he called a signifier and a signified.
And here's the absolute game changer. Saussure said this entire process happens inside our minds. It's not out there in the world. He called the sign a two-sided psychological entity. So get this, it's not about the physical thing, it's all about how we process it mentally. So let's break that down. The first part is the signifier. Now, this is not the actual physical sound of me saying the word table out loud. No, it's the psychological imprint of that sound. It's the sound image that pops into your head. Think of it like the mental file for that sound.
Okay, so what's the other side of that coin? That's the signified. And again, this is not a specific physical table, not the one in your kitchen or at a cafe. It's the general abstract concept of tableness. The idea of a flat surface on legs that you put stuff on. It's the shared idea behind every single table.
And this sign? Well, that's the whole package. It's the fusion of those two mental things. The sound image table and the concept of tableness are just locked together. Saussure had a great analogy for this. He said it's like a sheet of paper. You can't have a front without a back. You just can't separate them.
All right, so we've got these signs, right, made of signifiers and signified, all happening in our heads. But how does the whole system actually work? What are the rules of the game? Well, Saussure lays out two really powerful principles that explain everything.
But really, think about it for a second. What's the deep cosmic force that connects the sound table to the concept of a table? Is there some natural universal law that says it has to be that way?
Well, here's the big reveal. The answer is, there is no deep reason at all. The connection, in Saussure's most famous phrase, is completely arbitrary.
Now, arbitrary here doesn't mean it's just a total free-for-all where anyone can make up anything they want. It means the link is unmotivated. There's nothing inherently table-y about the sound table. It could have been glorp or schmeek. The only reason we use table is because, as a society, we've just agreed to it. It's a social contract, a convention we all just follow.
And that leads us to the second and honestly kind of mind-blowing rule. If the connection is just an agreement, then where does any word actually get its meaning? Saussure's answer is wild. It gets its meaning from its relationship with all the other words in the system. A word's value comes from what it isn't. Think of it like this. You only understand the word black because you also understand that it's not white, and it's not red, and it's not blue. Its whole identity is defined by these differences. So meaning isn't some little nugget of truth hidden inside a word. It's spread out across the entire web of language. Okay, that's all super interesting, but you might be thinking, so what? Why does this matter outside of a nerdy linguistics class? Well, because this single idea, that language is a structure based on arbitrary and relational rules, it didn't just change linguistics, it changed everything. To really see how this blew up, Saussure made one more key distinction. He split up Langue, that's the entire underlying system, the complete rulebook of language, from Parole, which is any specific thing you say or write. The chess analogy is perfect here. Langue is the rulebook for chess, how the pieces move, the goal of the game. Parole is the actual specific game you're playing right now. You can only make your moves because you and your opponent both know and accept that shared rulebook.
In this approach, this structuralist way of thinking, looking for the underlying system, the Langue of things, it was absolutely explosive. It was like a virus that infected every field of thought. Anthropologists started looking for the grammar of myths and rituals. Psychoanalysts like Jacques Lacan argued the unconscious was structured like a language. Literary theorists, philosophers, everybody started using this toolkit. Seriously, Saussure didn't just give us a new way to see language. He gave the entire 20th century a new way to think.
Which leaves us with one last kind of unsettling question. If we are all born into a pre-existing system of language, this massive structure of arbitrary signs that literally shapes how we can even think about the world, then how much of what you believe is a truly original thought? And how much of it is just you making a move in a game whose rules were written long, long before you ever sat down at the board?